So let me start with introducing myself so that you know where I'm coming from, where my knowledge is. This is me, this is my face, and I'm actually mostly a .NET developer, as you could see on the screen earlier. But I'm also a university teacher for the first year computer science students back at home. And we have a certain curriculum that we follow, and that always starts with PyGame. Why PyGame? Because it's very visual and it's very easy to start. And even if a student has a computer or a laptop that's 10 years old, they can run it. And it doesn't matter if it's macOS or Windows, it's very easy. And we let these students completely free in what they want to create, as long as they have a couple of things like lives and scores and levels. So they're completely free in whatever they want to create. And these are a couple of examples. So there's a lot of freedom. There are rocket shooters, kind of fighting games, maneuver games. As long as it's 2D, you can probably make it with PyGame. Now, most of us probably have started with HTML, CSS, which is great as well, unless you're, of course, a little bit older. But the issue is in there that if you want to learn some kind of logic that's going farther than HTML, you need to learn JavaScript. And then you have to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript at the same time, which can be kind of hard for some people. So we decided on PyGame because you get the knowledge of the backend kind of concepts or the more front-end library kind of concepts through PyGame. And within 6 months, the students that never coded before can go to full game. That's how simple it is. So especially loops are very important in games. There's always an end and a start with 2D games. And PyGame has that as well, so that's always a challenge for people that start with coding. Conditions are very important, variables and objects as well. You get into OOP straight away, so you learn how important that is. Now, what actually is PyGame? Well, you already heard that this is the front-end and web states, but it's live for this kind of library because PyGame is actually a free and open source Python library that's been around since, I believe, 2000 or even earlier. It's quite old. You're not going to make AAA games with it, but it's nice to get you started on game development. And it's actually only desktop applications. But you can run it on macOS, Windows, Linux, doesn't care what you run it on. You can run your applications natively. And it's mostly for 2D games. There are also people that make 3D games with it, together with WebGL. But of course, Python is very slow, so I would not recommend that. If you want to create games for web applications, for example, try Godot instead, G-O-D-O-T. It's a very good one as well. If you're looking for more of a web application format, that's a good option. Now, what PyGame is not is a gaming engine. You have to write the logic for the coalition and that kind of stuff. Physics, you have to write that all yourself. And again, it's not possible to format it to a web application. There are wrappers that will help you turn it into a web application, but it's a pain in the ass, so I would not recommend it. So before we get started with our demo, because these are my slides, to be honest, we are going to talk some terms that you maybe haven't heard of if you've never done game development before. Sprites are objects in games that have some kind of collision logic. So if you can hit it, it's a sprite. And it normally has some kind of image or just a block that you know that it's there. An event loop, of course, if you have multiple enemies, for example, you need to have a loop to generate this enemy all of the time. So you have an event loop that at some point will quit. Again, collision detection, if you shoot something, the game needs to know that you've hit it and that it will be removed or that something else is starting. So that's collision detection. And also ticks is very important. That's about milliseconds. It's very helpful if you know how much time is spent since the last time something has happened. And with ticks, you can get that down to milliseconds. So that's very helpful. I will show you that in a minute with code, that makes some more sense. Now, what you also need to know before I get started is that the position coordination system of PyGame is a bit strange. You get used to it eventually, but it takes some time to get used to. So the X position goes to the right, and the Y position goes down. This means that 0.500, for example, is the left bottom, and the 500.0 is the far right top, where the 00 is, of course, the left top. So that's how that works. Now let's get into code. So this is what we're going to create. Of course, I don't have a lot of time, and it's a lot of code to get into. I changed it a little bit so it looks a bit better now. But yeah, this is what we're going to make. It's going to be a shooter game where you can move from left to right, and there are bugs falling down that you have to shoot, and there is a score. I called it Space Debugger. So, so let's move over to PyCharm. So in here you will see that I have important PyGame. There's a difference, by the way, I skipped over that, between PyGame and PyGame CE. CE stands for Community Edition. There was a bit of drama a couple of years ago in the open source community for PyGame, and some people decided to start their own version. Now, that hasn't been too long ago, so they're very similar. At some point, they're probably going to separate more, but for now, you can use either PyGame or PyGame CE, and it both uses the import PyGame alias. So if you want to get started, it doesn't matter if you need particular functionalities that are very important to you. Maybe check out the documentation for PyGame and also for PyGame CE. So I have the import here for PyGame. I have a width and a height. There are better ways to do this. You can do that manually, but you can also do it in a way that it sees the screen size of the machine and then scales it up. But for now, I just kept it static. And also FPS, which is frames per second. It's very helpful if the game knows how fast the game actually has to move. So 60 frames per second comes down to 1.6 milliseconds, and that's how long the game will hold the frame over there before it goes to the next frame and the next frame and the next frame. If I put the FPS lower, it will go slower. If I put the FPS higher, it will go faster. Now, this is the dev main where everything happens, and I tell PyGame, hey, let's start this game library. And pretty much the first thing I want to do is check out if it actually opens a screen to start with without getting errors. So I say, hey, screen is the width and the height that are already determined, and set a caption, Space Debugger on the top, because I like that. And also a clock and a score is very helpful in the future if we actually start putting events in there when it comes to shooting or moving or those kind of things. So I already put it there. Then we have the game loop. Like I said, there's always a beginning and an end. So there always has to be a game loop in there. When running is true, it first of all will put the FPS in there so that it knows how fast or how slow it has to go. And I also already put a now in there later for when we're actually going to shoot, because you want some kind of cooldown in there so that it doesn't become a laser, but actually like bullets. So I already made an event as well. So that's the python.quit event, where I can say, hey, if somebody clicks the red cross on top, it will quit and it will stop the game loop. And I already put an array in there for keys as well, so that I later on can see what keys were used and move things from side to side. We'll see that later. Then there is a screen.fill, which is pretty much saying, hey, put a nice layer of paint over my screen. So this will generate a white background for me. I choose white because it's better to see on the screen here, but standard color for PyGame is black. So everything you generate when it comes to a block is black. I want white, so I want the 255, 255, 255 in there. And then I say, hey, please show whatever is on top on my screen. PyGame has two states. There is a state where it's doing some logic, but it's not showing to the user yet. Then in that place you can do a bit of logic. But there is also a state where it is showing to the user, and that is what we use with flip. So whatever is going on with logic in the backend, it will show it once flip is called. And of course, if the loop isn't running again, the PyGame system will quit and the system will close the window. So let's see if that works. Yep. So this is a white screen. Thank you for coming. This was my demo. No, just kidding. Just kidding, thank you. What we want to do now probably is create a player so that we can move and do something. So in the player, oh, it's still there, I have an import PyGame and also a bullet that I actually wanted to do later on, but I forgot to remove this part, so now you're getting it for free immediately. And I also, again, put in the width and the height. There's probably a better way to do this, but for this demo, that's fine. And I ask it to look at the sprite class that's already in PyGame, so that I can use the modules that are in there. So it looks at what is already in PyGame and copies that. And then it will look at the image that I actually made for it, which is in here. There we go. You know what? Let's do this differently. That's better. This is how it should have started. So it takes the stuff from the sprite in the PyGame. It makes a box. Let's keep it just on a box for now, just to keep it simple. So the service will make a square box of 96 pixels. And then again, just like the screen, how we filled that up with a color, we're now going to fill up this surface with a dark blue color. And then we create a rectangle, which will act like our hitbox. So the hitbox is whatever is going to be hit by something that is with the coalition. And I tell it, hey, I want this at the mid-bottom with whatever position is given to me in the main. And I also already added an update method, which tells it, hey, if it's updated with whatever keys group. Remember the key array that was already in main? I can use that in here and tell it, hey, okay, if the left arrow is called, you do this, and if the right arrow is called, do that. So here in main, what I'm going to do is first of all uncomment player, because we have that logic in here now. And I'm going to open this, and we're going to add that to a group, because groups makes it very easy to look at coalitions. So it already tells me, okay, create a group. And then I'm going to create a single player as an object. So player is player. And then the width separated by 2 is always the middle of the screen. And the height is just so that I can move it a little bit up so that it looks like it's floating. So that now is working. And then I'm going to tell it to update once it's called. So again here we have the update. And I'm going to use that in here as well. So player.update keys. So I'm going to give it whatever keys are stored in here, so it can see, okay, is the left arrow called or is the right arrow called, and do I need to do something in case that happens? And then I'm going to draw it. Like I said, there are two kinds of states in there, and with drawing, it happens to draw it up in the backend or like in a place where the user can see it, and then with flip, it will become visible. So I use player.draw, and I draw it to the screen, and then it should hopefully work. Nope, 1 second. I need to move this up. Otherwise, the background is going to... Nope. Let's see, what did I forget in here? Players add. I didn't add it, that's why. Small step. So let's try that again. Does it work now? Yay! Okay, now I have a very pretty box that I can move back and forth from the side to side with either left arrow, right arrow, or A and S. That's about it. And now I want to add bullets, so I can actually shoot stuff. And I'm going to do that through here, which is already in there as well. So in here, it's very similar to the player that you already saw, where it's taking again the sprite logic. It's going to create a block, it's going to give it a color, and it's going to make a hitbox for it. And with the update, we're going to tell it, hey, move up for every frame with about 6 pixels. And if it hits the bottom, in this case, kill it. And what does kill mean? It will remove it out of the group once this condition is done. If you want to remove it out of the group, it's called kill. If you want to create something once coalition happens, it's called alive. So kill, alive, very easy to remember. And then in the player, I need to add some logic to shoot. So I still need to import the bullet. It's going to tell me to do that. Yep, there we go. So I have a shoot method that I want. I want a cooldown so that it's different bullets and not just a laser that goes up all the time without breaks. And it says, hey, if now minus the last shot is bigger than the cooldown, so if the cooldown has passed, you can shoot again. If not, you have to wait for a little bit. And then it will add, if you are out of the cooldown, it will add the bullets. And it will return the now statement. So that works. Then in the main, we're going to tell it, hey, this sprite actually exists, show it to me. And first of all, then I need to add the bullet sprite so that it knows, okay, this is the group that I need to work with. Then I also need to tell it, hey, if the space key is tapped, please run player.shoot with the time that's currently at or whatever millisecond it's at and the bullets group that we just created. And of course, we're also going to update it. And we're going to draw it as well. So let's see if this works. Oh, something is going on. Oh yeah, I've got to add these to the constructor. 1 second. Player. Self.lastSlot. Let's keep that at 0 for now. And self.cooldown 250, yeah, that sounds about right. This is all milliseconds, so it's 2.5 seconds in between the bullets. Let's run it again. Yeah, great. Okay, I can shoot now. So that's beautiful. I would sell it right now, but let's not do that yet. Now we, of course, want an enemy, right? So similar idea, again, taking the sprite logic. This is still in there and shouldn't be in there. Enemy, there we go. So the height, we have a surface again, so a box, we fill it with a color, but instead of putting it in a certain position, we're going to randomize it because I want the enemies at certain points horizontally, so I have a random int in there. And I'm going to tell it, hey, put that random int in the x value, so it just randomly generates. And also put it at -10 for creation, so that it looks, it starts to create enemies from outside the border. So it looks like it's dropping down instead of just appearing. And also I added a speed in here between 3 and 5, so that all kinds of enemies have different speeds. So that makes it a little bit more interesting. And of course the update where it changes the y value up to the speed. And if it reaches the top, again, remove it from the group. So here in main.py, again, we're going to do the same thing. Enemies, put it in a group. Then what we are going to do is create an event for the spawning of the enemies, because PyGame needs that. So we're going to spawn it, and we're going to tell it, okay, this is how many times in a second I want it to spawn for me. And then I can add that to the event loop. So if event type is spawn, what did I have to? Let's do it like this instead. Enemy spawn, there we go. That's not the right place, but we will work with it. There we go. I still have to import this. And this can go out, don't need that. And then it knows, hey, whenever this user event is called, spawn the enemy in here. I may also put this back in there. And then we, of course, are going to update it. And we're going to draw it. Okay, let's see if that works. Yay! Okay, now we have enemies falling down. That works fine, but it's still just falling down and I can't hit it because there are no coalitions at all. So how do we do that? Well, it maybe sounds very mathematical to get this done, but it's actually quite easy. Here in hits, I tell it, hey, there are 2 groups in here, and I want it to look at these, and when these 2 hit at some point, please tell me. And it also asks me, hey, if enemies is hit, do you want it to get out of the group? Yes, I do, because I want it to disappear when it's hit. And do I want the bullet to disappear when the enemy is hit? Yes, I do, so that's also true. And let's, for right now, also, once it's hit, we want a score in there. So we're going to tell it, hey, whenever this hits array has an item, do it times 10 so that it goes up by 10 in score. And I also, of course, want to show it, so I use the font, which comes directly from PyGame. I'm going to render the text. And instead of flipping it, yeah, great. I'm going to blit it, because this is not a group, but something else. So if it's not a group, I use blit. And let's see if this works. I don't see the text. Oh yeah. So you need to fill it first, then you need to generate the text, otherwise the background is going over the text and you won't see it. So. Yeah. There we go. Can we actually hit it? Yes. The score goes up. Great. Well, now we have a working game, kind of. But it's still just blocks. So let's move it with some assets I have in here. Let's do the player. So then we can remove this. Do raw image is, it's an asset, so I need to add that as well. And then I need to transform the scale because it's a different kind of size. I believe it's 1020 by 1020, so I need to scale it down a bit and able to use it. And also for enemy, I'm going to remove the box and replace it with an image, an actual image this time. Raw image. And put the image in there. Let's see. Yes. Oh. It's the wrong, oh yeah, I called it orange bug. Right. So that will. And the player was kind of small, so let me just do this ×2. Right. And now I actually have a working game. It's not much, but it works. And you can spend hours on this if you want to. So you can also add music, more enemies, more coalition. There's joystick support if you wanted to. So there's a lot to experience with PyGame if you want it. So if you think, oh, this is interesting, here I have a couple of resources for the people that are interested. I see some cameras go out, so that's a good sign. Yep. Great. Now, if you want to find these slides or the code online later, you can find it at luella.dev/socials and then at the speaker session material in there. And I will upload the code as well as the slides on there later. It's a GitHub repository, so you just can clone it, fork it, whatever you want to do with it. It's free to use.